Yeah, Paul used to work at Telarc, so those of us who know audiophile classical recordings know Telarc certainly. So I've just been asked to read this note from Paul. I'll try to do it justice. He says, I don't know where to begin in describing anything about Neil. He was the most generous person I've ever known with his knowledge, time, resources, anything really. He was hugely influential on my life, career, and general approach to problem solving. He was my best man at my wedding. He was also my best friend for a number of years, even though we were separated by about 20 years in age. I'm profoundly sad that I couldn't be with him shortly before he died, but glad at least that I got to tell him how much I loved him over the telephone while he was in his last days at the hospital. We first met in 1975 when I was a 21-year-old student and he was a teacher at the Eastman School of Music's Summer Recording Institute. I was from Texas and wanted to work in music recording with every molecule in my body. In the early 70s, there weren't readily available degree programs in recording, but I found out about the Eastman Summer Institute. And that's how he met Neil. He says, I've got two quick stories about Neil, one crazy and one serious. And I'm debating whether I should tell the serious one first or the crazy one. I'll do both, but I'm going to start with the serious one, which he has second. Sorry, Paul, if you're watching this. Neil had an understanding of audio circuitry, the likes of which I never witnessed in another person. I had a small Neve 16x4 console that I used for location classical recording that had always had an unstable and unpredictable hum problem in setups in large concert halls where cables are running all over the place and multiple power circuits are involved. One summer, after finishing a recording at Mozart Festival in Oklahoma, I drove up to Salina, Kansas, where Neil was overhauling another Neve. He volunteered to take a look at my console. He opened the book of schematics, looked inside the console, looked inside the separate power supply, and in about 10 minutes had diagnosed and corrected an internal ground loop problem that was a design flaw. His understanding of the fundamental science of both electronics and acoustics and his ability to explain things, this is a recurring theme, isn't it? It was genius, really. So that was a serious one. Crazy. Neil and I both loved jazz and had a particular fondness for hard swinging big bands. Sometime in the early 1980s, Neil had worked with Phil Sheridan on a live recording of Rob McConnell's Boss Brass in a Toronto club. He had 15 IPS copies of the 2-track analog mix masters with him while we were at a recording workshop in Miami, doing a recording workshop for NPR. It says, one night during the workshop, we were in this hotel room drinking some scotch, and we decided we really wanted to hear some music. We dragged out an analog tape deck, power deck, a pair of monitors from amongst the equipment we had shipped down for the workshop and started cranking Rob's big band. This went on until the wee hours. When we met up in the morning class, we were astonished that no one in the hotel had complained. This reminds me of 3 of Neil's favorite expressions among many. So number 1 is his work is the curse of the drinking class. Number 2 was when you would wake up with a terrible hangover and terribly bloodshot eyes, Neil would always say, close your eyes before you bleed to death. Do you know this is number 3, you know when you have a hangover, when you wake up and you think you're going to die, but 2 hours later, you're afraid you're not going to die? So thank you, Paul, for those stories. He finishes off by saying, so, Neil, I hope you're having a great rest in peace. You were hugely influential on a whole generation.